So it is the 64th minute at the San Francisco Bay Area Stadium. The United States men's national team is up 1-0, and they're just, 30 minutes away from breaking this massive 24-year World Cup curse.
Right. The tension is just off the charts at this point.
Ooh, completely. The crowd of 60,000 is deafening. And then just a single foot accidentally steps on an opponent's ankle. A red card flashes in the California sun, and suddenly the stadium goes dead silent.
It's one of those moments where the air just gets sucked right out of the room.
Exactly. And the entire physics of the match, the tournament, the players' mental states, it all just completely inverts. So welcome to this deep dive. Today, we're exploring a historic collision of tactics and, honestly, pure human survival.
Yeah, we're looking at the USA's really dramatic 2-0 World Cup round of 32 victory over Bosnia and Herzegovina from July 1st, 2026.
Right. And our mission today is to take you well beyond the box score. We are synthesizing match reports, team histories, and even, the technical manuals of sports broadcasting to understand the hidden mechanics of this game.
Which is fascinating because we're not just looking at the sport itself. We are looking at the psychology of playing a man down, the rigid bureaucracy of global sports, and the fascinating way media is actually trained to capture athletes at their absolute breaking point.
Yeah, because the layers of this specific match, they provide a perfect case study in how systems, whether that's a defensive formation, a global rule book, or even a television production, how they either adapt or just completely collapse when unexpected chaos is introduced.
Absolutely.
So, okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because to truly appreciate the sheer panic of that 64th minute red card, we kind of have to rewind, right? We have to look at the invisible luggage that both of these teams dragged onto the pitch.
Oh, for sure. The context is everything here.
Right. So the United States came into this knockout round carrying this brutal 10-game losing streak against European opposition. Plus, they hadn't won a World Cup knockout stage match since they beat Mexico way back in 2002.
That is a long time to carry that kind of weight.
It is.
Yeah.
And I think about that European streak like a phantom injury.
Yeah.
Like a player might be perfectly healthy, the team might be loaded with talent, but every time they go into a tackle against a European squad, the collective brain flinches.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Because they just remember the past 10 times they got burned. How much does that historical baggage actually dictate a team's strategy versus just their raw emotion on the day?
Well, that phantom injury metaphor is incredibly apt, honestly, because historical baggage, it heavily dictates the physical tension of the players on the field.
Right.
When a team loses to a specific region 10 times in a row, it usually points to a structural discomfort.
Like a mismatch in styles.
Exactly. European teams, they typically play with this highly disciplined tactical rigidity, and that forces opponents to break them down very methodically.
Which is not the U.S. style at all.
No, not at all. The U.S. historically prefers a much more transitional, athletic, high-tempo game. So the tension you see in those opening minutes, it's the U.S. desperately trying to force their high-tempo style to work because they are terrified of falling into the same trap they've fallen into 10 times before.
Ah, so they're overcompensating.
Precisely. They were playing with this really aggressive, almost desperate attacking verve, and that was fueled by the pressure of a home crowd demanding that they, finally beat a European team.
Yeah, but the U.S. wasn't the only team dealing with historical gravity, right? Because Bosnia and Herzegovina, known as the Dragons or the Golden Lilies, they were stepping onto the pitch for their first ever World Cup knockout match.
Yeah, a monumental milestone for the entire country.
Huge.
And the emotional anchor for them was their captain, Tedinjeko. He came into this match as the nation's all-time leading scorer with 73 goals, and he was carrying 150 caps.
And just real quick, for anyone not deep into soccer terminology, a cap literally comes from the old days when players were given physical caps for international appearances.
Right, yeah, a fun bit of trivia.
Yeah, so having 150 caps means this guy has essentially gone to war for his national team 150 times. At his age, everyone in the stadium knew this was likely his final appearance on the global stage.
Which, heavily dictated Bosnia's strategy. They knew they could not match the chaotic youthful energy of the American squad.
So what do?
Well, they set up in a 5-3-2 formation, and this is a deliberately frustrating structure designed to just suffocate an attacking team.
Right, a five-man wall.
Exactly. By placing 3 central defenders in the middle and flanking them with 2 wing-backs who drop deep, you essentially build a barricade across the penalty area. It clogs every single passing lane in the center.
So they basically just wanted to survive the U.S. onslaught.
Pretty much. Bosnia's entire game plan was to absorb the American pressure, survive it, and hoof-long, hopeful balls upfield towards Zico. They were betting that his veteran instincts could conjure a miracle against the run of play.
I mean, it is a brilliant way to weaponize the USA's historical anxiety, if you think about it.
It really is.
You frustrate them, you make them feel like they're failing against a European wall yet again, and you just wait for them to make a mistake. And that tension centered completely on the American striker, Fowler and Balogun.
Oh, absolutely. His first half was wild.
The first 40 minutes for him were a psychological torture chamber. He makes a brilliant run, puts the ball in the net, and it's ruled out for offside.
Heartbreaking.
And then literally, a few minutes later, he fires a shot, and it loudly rings off the crossbar. If you have that phantom injury mentality, those are the exact moments where you start thinking, well, we are cursed. It is happening again.
But, Balogun's first half perfectly illustrates the difference between process and results.
How do you mean?
Well, tactically, his positioning was flawless. He was constantly finding the microscopic seams within that Bosnian 5-3-2 block we talked about. The offside call and the crossbar, from an analytical standpoint, were just statistical noise.
So he was doing the right things, just getting unlucky.
Exactly. The underlying mechanism was that he was successfully destabilizing their defense. It was working.
And the dam finally broke in the 45th minute, right before halftime. Malik Tillman threads this beautiful through ball into the box. It takes a wild double deflection off the Bosnian defenders, which is just pure chaos inside that five-man wall. And Balogun is positioned perfectly to slot it past the goalkeeper, Nikola Vasilch.
A classic striker's goal, just being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, and it's his third goal of the tournament. You can practically feel 60,000 people exhale at once. The curse is lifting. But that brings us back to the 64th minute. The moment the physics of the game inverted.
Right, the red card.
Yeah. Balogun is challenging for a loose ball. His momentum carries him forward, and his cleat comes down directly on the ankle of Bosnian defender Tarek Muharremovic.
And this raises an important question, really. This is where we see a fascinating collision between the raw, messy reality of human momentum and the sterile, unforgiving nature of technology.
Because the ref didn't call it a red card right away, did he?
No, he didn't. The referee initially didn't view it as a match-ending offense. But then we have the intervention of VAR, the video assistant referee.
Man, whenever a referee jogs over to that little sideline monitor, it feels like the entire sport goes into a courtroom setting.
Because the medium completely changes the perception of the act. When you take a high-speed 360-degree collision that is born of exhaustion and adrenaline, and you slow it down to a frame-by-frame, two-dimensional video loop, well, every single micro-movement looks deliberate.
Right. It completely removes context.
Exactly. A foot landing awkwardly due to gravity suddenly looks like a calculated stomp when viewed in super slow motion. And that VAR review led the referee to upgrade the foul to a straight red card, instantly reducing the U.S. to 10 men.
Which just triggers an entirely new bureaucratic nightmare. Because under FIFA rules, a straight red card doesn't just mean you are ejected from the current game. It carries an automatic one-game suspension for the next match.
Right, it carries over.
And looking at the rule book, what really blows my mind is that the U.S. has absolutely zero avenue to appeal this.
Yeah, the rules on appeals are surprisingly strict.
It's crazy. Compare Balogun's situation to a player like Asim Madibo from Qatar earlier in the tournament.
Yeah.
Madibo had a horrific tackle that unfortunately broke the leg of Canada's Ismail Kone.
A really awful injury.
Awful. And FIFA reviewed that and gave Madibo a 5-game suspension. But because they added 4 games to the baseline penalty, Qatar was legally allowed to file an appeal for the addition.
Yeah, you also had Paraguay's Miguel Almiron, who received a standard 1-game ban for a confrontational gesture earlier in the group stage.
Right, I remember that.
Because the disciplinary committee did not add extra games to Almiron's suspension, Paraguay could not appeal. The baseline 1-game ban is ironclad. It is essentially a bureaucratic firewall.
I mean, I have to push back on the logic of that firewall, though.
Yeah.
Like a system where a team can actually appeal a 5-game suspension for a leg-breaking tackle, but they can't appeal a 1-game suspension for what was clearly an accidental step on an ankle in a knockout match.
It does seem counterintuitive when you frame it that way.
It doesn't seem to be built on fairness at all. That feels like FIFA prioritizing administrative convenience over the actual trajectory of a player's tournament. They just, they don't want a deluge of paperwork every Monday morning.
Well, you're not wrong. The mechanism is entirely about protecting the schedule and insulating the on-field officials from endless Monday morning litigation.
Yeah, that makes sense from their perspective.
If you allow appeals for baseline punishments, you incentivize every single federation to weaponize their legal teams to game the system. Every red card would be appealed. But, as you pointed out, the collateral damage of that efficiency is the human element. Balogun's tournament was fundamentally altered by a microscopic judgment call amplified by slow-motion technology with no right of reply.
And the immediate collateral damage falls on the 10 American players left on the field. Think about it. You are up 1-0, you have 30 minutes left, plus stoppage time.
An eternity in soccer terms.
Right, and you suddenly have to abandon your entire offensive philosophy and drop into a desperate defensive shell against a Bosnian team that is suddenly throwing everything forward to save their World Cup lives.
The biomechanical reality of playing down a man at this level is just staggering. Every remaining player must immediately increase their spatial coverage by roughly 10%.
10% more ground to cover, instantly.
Yes. But they're being asked to do this in the final third of a match, which is precisely when the central nervous system is already struggling to send signals to fatigued muscles. You are essentially asking for a sprint when the tank is empty.
And you could literally see the tank emptying on Christian Pulisic. I mean, he had just returned from a calf injury that sidelined him in the previous match against Australia. By the 87th minute, he was barely upright.
He looked completely spent.
Yeah, and when coach Mauricio Pochettino finally subbed him off for Ricardo Pepi, social media exploded. Fans were absolutely terrified Pulisic had re-injured the calf.
Which is a natural fear given his history.
Exactly. But it wasn't an injury. It was just total systemic exhaustion.
Pochettino's post-match comments were incredibly revealing on this point. He didn't focus on tactical adjustments at all. He said, and I quote, "The eyes of the players showed they were ready to fight."
Wow, yeah.
And Pulisic echoed that, simply stating they had to dig deep. When systems fail, when you are outnumbered, tactics just evaporate and success becomes entirely reliant on emotional resilience.
And that resilience paid off. In the 82nd minute, Malik Tillman, who, by the way, was brilliantly orchestrating the midfield and ended up being named player of the match, he steps up and buries a free kick to seal the 2-0 victory.
A massive moment for him.
Huge. The stadium erupts, the U.S. survives, but the survival narrative isn't just about the athletes on the grass, right?
Yeah.
Because here's where it gets really interesting. Imagine being the sideline reporter who just spent 60 minutes scripting this triumphant interview in your head about breaking a 24-year European curse. And suddenly, you have 30 seconds to completely rewire your brain to interview an exhausted, terrified player who just survived a 10-man siege.
Yeah, that sudden shift in narrative requires immediate technical and psychological pivoting from the media. The source material we have on sports broadcasting, it breaks down this invisible choreography beautifully.
It's so cool to read about.
The audience at home just sees a reporter asking a question, but they don't see the frantic mental geometry happening seconds prior.
Even just the technical preparation is wild to me. Like, modern stadiums are lit by these massive, intense fluorescent banks. If a camera operator doesn't manually adjust the camera's white balance to offset the green and magenta tints of those stadium lights, the exhausted players will look like distorted, sickly ghosts on television.
Right, color temperature is crucial.
You have a stadium of 60,000 screaming fans, you have a producer yelling in your earpiece, and you are literally standing there worrying about white balance.
They are also managing spatial psychology, which is fascinating. Broadcasters are trained to utilize the rule of thirds.
Oh, right, the photography rule.
Exactly. Rather than placing the athlete directly in the dead center of the screen, which can feel confrontational or visually flat, they frame the shot so the player's eyes align with the intersecting points of an invisible tic-tac-toe board on the lens. The player is directed to look slightly off-camera at the reporter,
which prevents that deeply uncomfortable feeling of an interviewee staring dead-eyed into the living rooms of millions of people.
Yes, it softens the interaction for the viewer.
It grounds the viewer. It makes you feel like you are standing right there on the sideline observing a conversation, rather than being interrogated by the player. But the most vital tool the broadcaster has to adjust in that chaos isn't the camera at all.
No, it's the words they use.
Right, it's the phrasing of the questions.
Because interviewing an athlete fresh off a physical trauma like playing down a man for 30 minutes, it requires bypassing their conditioned PR reflexes. If you ask a yes or no question, or if you lean on the ultimate broadcasting cliche like, how does it feel to win, you will receive a completely programmed response.
Oh, 100%. You ask a tired guy how it feels, his brain is just going to take the path of least resistance. He's going to say, it feels great, the boys worked hard, we gave 110%.
Empty air, it gives you nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to extract a genuine narrative, master interviewers utilize descriptive questioning. They demand sensory recall.
Yes.
Instead of asking about feelings, you instruct the subject to transport themselves back to a specific timestamp.
Yeah.
You say something like, describe the exact moment you saw the referee pull the red card out of his pocket, and you realized you had to cover the midfield with 10 men.
That is brilliant because it forces the athlete's brain to reconstruct a memory rather than recite a platitude. It bypasses the media training entirely. And, it perfectly mirrors what Pochettino had to do as a coach when the red card happened. The sideline reporter's preparation and the coach's preparation are exercising the exact same muscle.
Oh, that's a great connection.
When the environment unexpectedly shifts, neither the coach nor the reporter magically rises to the occasion. They default to their baseline level of training.
It is the ultimate test of foundational habits. Whether you are Malik Tillman calculating the physics of a free kick through exhausted legs, or a reporter adjusting white balance and formulating a sensory-based question amidst a roaring crowd, you survive the chaos by trusting the meticulous preparation you did in the quiet moments.
Exactly. You fall back on what you've practiced.
And this is where it gets really relevant for everyone listening to this right now. Because you don't have to be a World Cup athlete or a sideline reporter to utilize these mechanics tomorrow morning.
No, these are universal principles.
Right. If you are navigating a corporate environment or managing a team and sudden chaos strikes, maybe a key coworker abruptly resigns, or a major client unexpectedly changes their demands, your tactical plan is instantly blown up. You are officially down a man.
And in those moments, your historical baggage will dictate your tension, just like the U.S. team. If you have failed in similar high-pressure situations before, you will instinctively brace for impact.
You'll feel that phantom injury.
Yes. Recognizing that phantom injury in your own professional life is the very first step to overriding it.
I love that. And when you are trying to understand how your team is reacting to that chaos, don't ask your colleagues, how do you feel about this pivot?
Right. Avoid the cliche.
Ask them descriptive, targeted questions. Walk me through what went through your mind when we lost the client account today. Force them into sensory recall. That is how you get to the truth of the problem, rather than the polite corporate platitude.
It requires controlling the variables you can, your habits, your phrasing, your awareness of your own baggage, so you are sufficiently anchored to survive the variables you cannot control.
Absolutely. And, the U.S. men's national team controlled exactly enough to survive. They shattered that 24-year European curse. Balogun will serve his unappealable suspension, but the remaining squad now advances to the round of 16 in Seattle. And waiting for them there is Belgium.
A Belgium squad that is riding a completely different but equally powerful psychological wave right now.
Oh, man, yeah, they are.
They are coming into Seattle having just pulled off a miraculous 3-2 comeback against Senegal after being down 2 goals.
Which just sets up an absolutely incredible collision of human nature for the next round. So I want to leave you, the listener, with this final thought to explore on your own. We are about to witness 2 teams entering a stadium fueled by entirely different survival mechanisms.
It's going to be fascinating.
On one side, you have a U.S. team that physically exhausted every cellular resource they had, running for their lives with 10 men, but gaining the massive emotional momentum of finally breaking a generational curse. And on the other side, a Belgian team riding the pure adrenaline of a miraculous comeback.
2 very different kinds of energy.
Right. So when those 2 forces meet in Seattle, which will ultimately win out, the undeniable accumulating physical fatigue of the human body or the boundless emotional adrenaline of making history.
We will soon see where the limits of human endurance truly lie.
Until next time, keep digging deep.